Okay, hello, welcome in to my channel where I talk about doing in-home elderly care. So if you're watching these videos, it means that you are either thinking about or are doing in-home elderly care. So it means that you're looking after somebody, grandmother, grandfather, mother, father, cousin, sibling, aunt, uncle, whoever it might be, close friend that is up in years, or they're facing a condition which has made them dependent on having care at home. Could be your home, could be their home. If you watch this video series, any of these videos, you know that we've been going through a list of items to look at and consider before taking on this challenge, or if you're actually in it currently, we also look at things to consider to take in while you're going through the process. As always, I use my my background and experience on the subject matter to kind of vet these items or the things that I talk about weekly with my grandmother, Ruth C. Kenton, who I had the pleasure of doing in-home care for her the last couple of years of her life, where I did stay with her, I did live with her, and assist her through her last years of life. These past couple of weeks, we've been bouncing around with a couple of different subjects. I've got one today that you can see from the title line, social media, that I want to speak about, because if you are in this situation, there's just seen, or should I say, foreseen and unforeseen things that you will encounter. Some of the things that you will encounter will be exactly like what I have described, both in situation and options. And then other things will be something I never had to deal with. I'll give you a for instance. A friend of mine I was just speaking to earlier this week called him up. He's in the car. Where are you going? I'm going to a funeral. A mutual friend of ours' mother had died. Said, oh, was it unexpected or something that you saw coming? He said, well, she's been dealing with dementia for like the last 2 years and has been in a care facility, to look after her until she passed. Which, if you've heard, again, seen any of these videos, heard me speak on it, that is one condition that I would not recommend doing in-home elderly care for. It is a full-blown 24/7 job where my take on it is that you need trained medical professionals to look after that individual, to give them the best level of care. So saying that to say that was not a situation that I had to figure out solutions for. That was my case. That might not be your case. Thankfully, Ruth's body gave out on her, continued to give out on her little by little as she got to the point where she passed away, but her mind was always there, and thank the Lord for that, because it's a completely different ball game dealing with Alzheimer's, dementia, something that is just debilitating to the brain. And then you have to, or you hear these stories from people of, how somebody, they left the house, they're dealing with this condition, they were unsupervised, they left the house, and you don't know where they are. They're showing up at random spots. And I mean, that could just be one of several different ways that could play out. And thankfully, I did not have to consider that, but you might have to. So again, getting back to today, what I want to look at are some items to consider for social media. So let me put my slides up like I normally do here. Nope, let me get the right screen on. There we go. Cut over to this shot. Okay, so elderly care, doing elderly care and managing social media. So as you know, I put up a series of bullet points. For these, though, it's kind of all encompassing of the same thing. And depending on the customer's condition, there's some nuance here, of course, as there is with really anything that we talk about. But I'll start out by saying that my blanket statement for social media involvement for you as the caretaker, as it pertains the customer, should be as minimal as possible, okay? In fact, I would say to stay away from it completely as much as possible, again, as it pertains the customer. Now, if you're out and you're hanging out or you're at a concert or something and you're in a situation that is completely separated from the customer, I would say that social media, rules or your social media decision making process should be the same as it normally would be. But when it concerns the customer, I would say to make that as minimal as possible. And looking at some of the things that I've got here, the first one, or like the most common social media engagement that we have, are pictures, right? Posting pictures. Several reasons why I do not recommend posting pictures as they pertain to the customer. Remember, social media, and this is outside of this subject, this is just social media in general. Engaging in social media is inviting people by nature into your life, into your world, okay? You're giving them information about yourself, from as basic as what you look like, right, to where you are, who you're with. Could be a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So you're giving people several bits of information. And the thing about social media is that it's really available to anybody that's in your circle, the widespread circle of online of online world, right? So yeah, there are some things where, like, well, my account's private, and well, I'm not connected to this individual, be it like if we're talking about Facebook, I'm not friends with them, or if it's IG or something else, I'm not a follower, right? But still, you're even with that being said, some things can still be found publicly, even against your best measures taken. And I understand that it is a lot better now and a lot more difficult now to do that, but just giving that information and putting it on those platforms, you're opening yourself up, and you're opening up that world that you might not want to have people involved in. You're opening that up to them, okay? And you're just not gonna want to have people who are not involved. I've talked about the concept of simplicity, okay? That's adding a complication to do that. Most of the time, you're not gonna want to do it, even if it's positive feedback that you're getting, okay? Because again, you're inviting people into your world, into the world of the customer. Now, because you've posted that or done that thing, now someone might get the idea that they can reach out to you about anything, anytime, as it pertains to the customer, right? Because you're putting it out there to the world, so you're comfortable with that, right? And even if you walk that back and you're like, no, it might not come across that way, or there could be, again, just some complication associated with that. And there are some people, as we've talked about, the concept of the stakeholder, people who aren't that primary caretaker, yet they are involved into whatever capacity that we've discussed earlier into the customer's life. Those would be people who could possibly or probably ask you questions about the customer, regardless of what the subject is regarding the customer, at any time regarding the customer. But you don't want to open that same conversation up to Charlie that you were friends with in 11th grade that you don't even know anymore. You know what I'm saying? Just somebody who is not there, okay? Even if it's positive. And let me tell you something else about the customer, at least the customers as they currently sit in this generation, because there'll probably be another 20 years or so before we really see an entire generation of people who are getting older, probably my generation, in fact, getting older or old enough to where social media really played an impactful role in their life, and these kind of things matter. I can tell you for Ruth was 95. She could not have cared less. Okay, she could not have cared less. As a matter of fact, she viewed social media in general as a big privacy inconvenience. As a matter of fact, there was a story I heard, at least, of somebody who got one of her recipes and posted it online. Just posted one of her recipes online. She didn't even like that. Okay, so it wasn't a picture of her. There wasn't any connection to her, at least I know of. Maybe she liked to sign things. Maybe she signed it and it had her name on it. But that was the extent of that. She didn't like it, and she didn't care. And I think that that's going to be pretty standard, even though, like I'm saying, the generational piece will change. I think that'll be pretty standard ultimately across timelines, which is when you're dealing with someone and they're in this very vulnerable state. Ruth was blind, she was deaf, she was immobile at the end, at the end. It does not matter to her if she has 200,000 followers, or if she's making X amount of money in ad revenue, or if she got 1,000 likes on something. Completely disconnected from her generation. There's that piece, but also too, just humanistically, it doesn't seem obvious. The way I'll state this, it doesn't seem obvious that those will be the things we will care about when we get to that point in life. Okay, so don't do it. When I had a couple of different times that I lived with Ruth, and we were in North Carolina, and we're Carolina Panther fans, and I think this was 2015, 14, something like that. One of my first stints of living with her, or starting to help with the transition. You can hear more about it in other videos. And there was a thing with the Panthers where you could tag somebody or post a picture or whatever and see if they would retweet it. This was on Twitter. See if they would retweet it. I posted a picture of her and I in our Panther jerseys. That was the most I ever did. And not that that was right or wrong or anything like that, but it was definitely obvious as time progressed that it was something I did once. I didn't do it again. But it was obvious not to do that, because it's irrelevant to the care of the customer. Also, too, and this is just the general nature of social media, the idea that people get to cheaply know you or have an idea of you in their head just based off of the social media profile, right? So if you get a call, again, we're in North Carolina, maybe you get a call from Uncle Gary in Seattle, who wants to know how Ruth's doing, and is like, man, I wish you would really post something of her. I want to know how she's doing. Hey, Uncle Gary, okay, if you really want to know, then take the $500 and buy a ticket and come out and see her for a week, okay? We got plenty of room. You can come and stay. What those customers want when they get to that place is in-person, human, one-on-one contact, okay? They don't want to be known from a distance like that, or a random phone call. And I'm not saying not to call, but generally speaking, that's not their preferred method. And if you're dealing with someone too that has a pattern of doing these kind of things and making it come across like genuine connection, it only makes it worse. And now, again, they're going to believe that they're entitled to it because you've opened that conversation. You've started to put that stuff out there. Now, when you stop doing it, it's your fault. It's your problem. It's not theirs. They were just living their life, and then there you go, putting up pictures of the customer, and now they want to know more about the customer, right? Also, too, with that regard, actually, I'll cover that when I get to video and live streams. I'll go on to the next one. So, posting statuses, okay. I would advise, even if they're positive, okay, and this is this will tie into posting statuses and venting. Even if they're positive, not to do it. Stay away from it. Keep it separate. Especially if it's on your profile. But even if the customer has a profile, okay, unless they're actually literally doing it themselves, or they've manually instructed you to do something themselves. Which again, I don't see that being a thing for the next 20 years or the next generation of people getting elderly, because it's, even though you got some onesies and twosies of people that are elderly and online and using social media, I mean, everyone knows for the most part it is not that generation that is doing it. I mean, heck, even Ruth was in the greatest generation, even the boomers, okay? And I'm not a boomer, I'm a millennial, but even the boomers, okay? Very, very rare, or, just rarer than what you're going to find with the millennials, Gen Z, or even Generation Alpha, the newest generation, who, even for me, social media, I'm one of the earlier born millennials. It did not become a thing until I was in my 20s. Okay, so I think it's going to be a while before we really see like an entire generation wanting that to be a thing, even as they get into elderly age. So yeah, unless if you're in the onesie twosie situation where the customer has a profile on whatever platform and they're actually instructing you to do it, then like, okay, obviously you want to abide by what the customer is requesting, especially if it does not affect the level of care. But for the most part, you're not going to have to deal with that. And you don't want to create an account for them either. You don't want to do that either. Okay. You don't want to, I don't even, I'm so adamant about this. I would say, because again, looking at my situation, or, and I think this is just typical of grandparents' houses, right? You go in and there's old pictures of the family, there's pictures of you and your siblings when they were younger and kids, and your cousins, and then your parents, your aunts and uncles, everything. Don't take pictures of the pictures and even post those. Don't do any of that. Leave it completely separate. Again, even if it's positive, because you're opening up a conversation. And even though something might seem innocent enough, someone else might not want it online. Okay, and now you've got complication. You've got another complication that you've added onto your plate, where you're already completely overloaded just by giving the customer the level of care that they want. So, posting status isn't venting. I'm saying even if it's positive, but especially if it's not positive, okay? So what you don't want to do is put some status update or whatever out there that's like, at 5 a.m. this morning, Ruth woke up and she was having shortness of breath, and so we had to rush her to the hospital, and then when we got there, they couldn't see her right away, and then we couldn't get a doctor, and then she couldn't get a room, and she had to wait for a bed. Forget all that. Look, putting that out there and coming with the guise that you're trying to give people information about the customer and keep them informed, frankly, ultimately looks like you're just trying to put yourself out there. Okay, it comes across like you're trying to play in the situation I just described, some sort of victim card. Look at what I'm doing. Look at all I have to do. And gosh, aren't I a good person because I'm like sacrificing all of this for my life to do that? Forget all that noise. Forget all that. Like, if that's your posturing on it, you're probably not a good candidate to do this. Okay, so stay away from all of that. All right. Video and live stream, which might be the least of these to have to be concerned with. Stay away from that. Stay away from videos and live stream as it pertains to the customer, right? Having the customer in those videos, in that live stream. And I mean, this could go back to pictures too. I think that it might just be more because of videos 24 frames a second. In generally speaking, videos and live streams, like, you don't want people asking, "Oh man, she looked terrible. Oh my, is she okay? She said something. What does she mean by that? Just opening up those conversations. I'm telling you, you don't want it. You don't want it. You want to keep that, and it's not about like keeping it secret or keeping her or her condition or whoever you're caring for under a rock so that it's not exposed to the world, but it's a very sensitive thing, and you don't want to bring people into it that aren't actually going to elevate the situation without certainty that will elevate the situation. Because here's the thing, even people that are striving to, you included as the caretaker, who are actively working to improve the situation, will find yourself in situations where you're not improving the situation or someone else is not improving the situation. And those are people who are actively trying to do it. So to open that conversation up to a larger crowd that has no skin in the game at all, you're asking, even if for the first 5 times you post something, it goes smooth, that sixth time, if it goes bad, you've got like a whole separate deal on your hands. And now people are calling the customer and they want to know this or that. And, cousin Sally saw you in some Facebook live stream and what's going on? Are you feeling okay? Or it could be whatever. Could be whatever. And again, especially this last year that we dealt with Ruth, her condition worsened to the point where I know that she would not have wanted to be seen like that. I mean, as a matter of fact, she told me that several times at the end about people wanting to come and visit her, and she didn't know if she wanted people to come over and visit because she didn't want to be seen that way. Okay, so that's the roll up on social media. That's my take. Is even as I'm on YouTube right now, live streaming, using social media as a platform to platform myself and these stories as it pertains to the customer, okay? There's minimal value. There's minimal value to it, okay? Anyone that wants to see her can physically come and see her. And the stories about how I don't have time and I can't and I don't know when I can get down there and all that, it's fugazi. It's a total fugazi. In life, we make time for the things that we want to do, flat out, and anything else, generally speaking, is fugazi. It totally is. So that's the roll-up for today. I'll go to my last slide as I normally do here. Questions, hit me up, Mario at thealphaitalian.com. Give me your name and location, and we will field them on the show at a later date. All right. Thank you, YouTube world. Have a phenomenal day. See you next time.